The wind howled a mournful dirge, a banshee wail tearing across the steel expanse of the Icebreaker's deck. It clawed at my exposed skin, a thousand icy needles pricking and stinging, a constant reminder of the brutal reality that had become my world. Above, the sky was a bruised canvas of indigo and gray, heavy with the promise of more snow, more darkness, more relentless cold. The only light came from the ship's floodlights, harsh and unforgiving, painting the frozen landscape in stark, ethereal shades. They illuminated the endless, undulating white, broken only by the jagged edges of pressure ridges, monuments to the immense power held captive within the ice. I gripped the railing, the metal biting into my gloved hands, a small, grounding pain in the face of the overwhelming vastness. Below, the ship groaned and shuddered, a leviathan straining against its icy chains. Each lurch sent a tremor through my body, a vibration that resonated deep within my bones, a primal fear whispering of the crushing force that surrounded us. The air itself tasted of ice, a metallic tang that filled my lungs with each ragged breath. I closed my eyes, trying to shut out the relentless assault on my senses, but the cold seeped in, finding every crack and crevice in my defenses. A sudden crack, like a gunshot, echoed across the deck, followed by the grinding roar of ice against steel. My eyes snapped open, fear spiking through me. The ship lurched again, more violently this time, throwing me against the railing. For a moment, I felt a terrifying weightlessness, a sense of being adrift in a sea of white. Then, just as quickly, the ship righted itself, the grinding fading into a low, guttural rumble. I clung to the railing, my heart hammering against my ribs, the taste of fear bitter on my tongue. What had been a calculated adventure now felt like a desperate gamble. The Arctic claimed something from everyone who dared to venture into its domain. It demanded respect, demanded humility, demanded a piece of your soul. I wondered what piece it would take from me. The memories arrived unbidden, a kaleidoscope of warmth and light, a stark contrast to the frozen world that held me captive. I saw my grandmother's hands, gnarled with age and stained with the earth, kneading dough in the warm, flour-dusted kitchen. The scent of cinnamon and yeast filled the air, a comforting aroma that spoke of home and hearth. Her laughter echoed in my ears, a melodic sound that could chase away any shadow. She had always been my anchor, my guiding star, the one who taught me the importance of resilience, of finding beauty in the face of hardship. She used to tell me stories of the old country, of long, harsh winters and the strength it took to survive. Stories of families huddled together, sharing stories and songs to keep their spirits alive, stories of the northern lights dancing across the sky, a promise of hope in the darkest of nights. I remember sitting at her feet, mesmerized by her words, imagining myself braving those frozen landscapes, a small, determined figure against the immensity of the world. It was a romantic fantasy then, a far cry from the bone-chilling reality I now faced. Her hands, those strong, capable hands, were the same hands that taught me to knit, to sew, to create something beautiful and useful from simple strands of yarn or fabric. She believed in the power of making, of using your hands to connect with the world, to leave your mark on it. I remembered the countless hours we spent together, her patiently guiding my clumsy fingers, her voice a constant stream of encouragement and love. The scarf I wore now, the one that protected my face from the biting wind, was one she had made for me, a tangible reminder of her presence, a shield against the cold. I had come here seeking adventure, seeking a challenge, seeking something to fill the void that had been growing inside me. But now, as I stood on the edge of the world, surrounded by ice and darkness, I realized that what I was truly seeking was a connection to something larger than myself, a connection to the strength and resilience that had been passed down through generations. I wanted to prove to myself that I could endure, that I could find beauty and meaning even in the harshest of environments. And perhaps, in doing so, I could honor the memory of my grandmother, the woman who had taught me how to survive. The wind seemed to soften, just a fraction, as if acknowledging my resolve. The ship groaned again, but this time, it felt less like a threat and more like a companion, a fellow traveler on this solitary journey. I tightened my grip on the railing, my gaze fixed on the horizon, where the faint glimmer of dawn was beginning to paint the sky with hues of pink and purple. It was a fragile promise, a fleeting moment of beauty in a world of unrelenting cold. But it was enough. It was enough to remind me that even in the darkest of winters, there is always hope. The storm raged for 3 days. 3 days of howling wind that tore at the ship like a hungry beast, 3 days of ice and snow that plastered every surface, 3 days of a bone-chilling cold that seeped into your marrow and refused to leave. Inside, the Aurora was a hive of frantic activity, engineers battling frozen pipes, the bridge crew fighting to maintain course, the galley staff working tirelessly to keep everyone fed and warm. But outside, on the exposed deck, it was a different world altogether, a world of white fury and deafening roar. I remember watching Anya, her face a mask of determination, lash herself to the railing as she checked the ice sensors for what felt like the 100th time. Her movements were slow, deliberate, each action a battle against the elements. I wanted to go out there, to help, to stand beside her, but the captain had forbidden it. The risk was too great, he said. One wrong step, one moment of inattention, and you'd be swept overboard, lost forever in the icy abyss. And then it happened. A rogue wave, larger than any we'd seen before, slammed into the Aurora with the force of 1,000 cannons. The ship shuddered, groaned, and for a terrifying moment, listed dangerously to starboard. I saw Anya lose her footing, her body tossed about like a rag doll. The safety line snapped. I screamed her name, a sound swallowed by the wind. I pushed past the captain, ignoring his shouts, and stumbled onto the deck. The world was a blur of white, the wind of physical force trying to rip me apart. I crawled towards where I'd last seen her, my hands raw and bleeding from the ice. And then I saw her, clinging to a broken piece of railing, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. The next wave was already building, a towering wall of water that threatened to engulf her. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the core, that if I didn't reach her now, she was gone. I lunged forward, ignoring the pain, ignoring the cold, ignoring everything but the desperate need to reach her. My fingers brushed against hers, cold and numb. I grabbed hold, pulling with all my strength. For a moment I thought I had her. But the wave crashed down, a wall of ice and water that tore us apart. I felt her hand slip from mine, her scream lost in the roar. And then she was gone. The storm eventually subsided, leaving behind a world of frozen silence. The Aurora limped back to port, its crew battered and broken. I spent the next few days in a daze, numb with grief and guilt. They searched for Anya, of course, but everyone knew it was hopeless. The Arctic claimed its own, and it rarely gave them back. The funeral was a small, somber affair. A few crew members, the captain and me. We scattered her ashes over the icy waters, a final farewell to a woman who had loved the Arctic with all her heart. I stood there, watching the ashes disappear into the white expanse, and I knew that a part of me had died with her. The silence is the worst. Back then, it was the howling wind, the groaning of the ship, the constant roar of the storm. Now, it's the quiet of my own apartment, the ticking of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator. A silence that amplifies the memories, that allows the ghosts to whisper. I haven't been back to the Arctic. Not since. The mere thought of it sends a shiver down my spine, a phantom pain in my hand where her fingers slipped away. I see the ice, the snow, the unforgiving landscape, and all I can think of is her face, pale and terrified, as the wave crashed down. People say time heals all wounds. But they're wrong. Time just dulls the edges, allows you to build walls around the pain. The wound is still there, festering beneath the surface, a constant reminder of what you've lost. I tried to move on, to build a new life. I found a job, a small apartment, even attempted a relationship. But it never worked. The ghosts were always there, hovering in the background, a constant barrier between me and any chance of happiness. Sometimes, late at night, I dream of her. We're back on the Aurora, the sun shining, the ice sparkling. We're laughing, sharing stories, our faces flushed with the joy of discovery. And then the storm comes, the wave crashes down, and I wake up screaming, drenched in sweat. I keep a small photo of her on my desk. a candid shot taken during a brief moment of calm on the deck. She's smiling, her eyes crinkled at the corners, her face radiant with life. It's the only way I can remember her, the only way I can keep her alive. I know I'll never truly be free of the Arctic, of Anya. She's a part of me now, woven into the fabric of my being. And maybe, in a way, that's not such a bad thing. She taught me the true meaning of courage, of resilience, of the enduring power of the human spirit. Even in the face of the most unforgiving environment, she found beauty, she found purpose, she found love. And so I carry on, living my life as best I can, carrying her memory with me. A silent tribute to a woman who loved the Arctic, and who lost her life to its icy embrace. And sometimes, when the wind howls outside my window, I can almost hear her voice, whispering my name, a faint echo from a world of ice and snow. The radio crackled, a distorted voice cutting through the perpetual howl. It was a research vessel, closer than any ship had dared venture in months. They'd picked up our faint distress signal, amplified by the Aurora's strange interference. Rescue was hours away, but the word itself felt alien, a forgotten promise whispered on the wind. I gripped the railing, the cold steel biting into my numb fingers. The storm was finally breaking. The wind, though still fierce, carried a hint of something cleaner, a nascent promise of spring. They lifted Elias first. He was barely conscious, his breath shallow and ragged, his skin a ghostly blue. As they secured him to the hoist, his eyes fluttered open, and he looked at me. A faint smile touched his lips, a fragile, almost ethereal expression of peace. He knew. He knew he wasn't coming back. And he was content. He reached out a trembling hand, as if to touch the falling snow, to embrace the very essence of the Arctic that had claimed him. Then, his eyes closed, and they lifted him away, a silent offering to the vast, indifferent sky. The grief hit me then, a physical blow that stole my breath. It wasn't just for Elias, but for everything lost, the dreams that had frozen solid, the hope that had dwindled to a flickering ember, the naive belief that I could conquer this place. The Icebreaker suddenly felt like a tomb, a monument to my hubris. I wanted to scream, to rage against the injustice of it all, but the cold had seeped too deep, numbing not just my body but my soul. When they came for me, I didn't resist. I was a husk, emptied of everything but the bone-deep weariness. As the harness tightened around me, I looked back at the deck, at the swirling snow that was already erasing our footprints, our struggle. The Aurora danced above, a silent, shimmering spectacle, indifferent to our suffering. It was then, suspended between the ship and the rescue vessel, that I saw it. A single polar bear, a magnificent creature of pure white, standing on a distant ice floe. It was watching me, its dark eyes gleaming in the fading light. Not with malice, but with something akin to understanding. It was the spirit of the Arctic, acknowledging my surrender, accepting my defeat. In the warmth of the rescue ship, wrapped in blankets and sipping hot broth, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. The doctor told me I was lucky to be alive, that another few hours would have been fatal. But luck had nothing to do with it. Elias had saved me. He had sacrificed himself, not in some grand, heroic gesture, but in the quiet, unwavering commitment to keep me alive. He had understood something I hadn't, that survival wasn't about conquering the Arctic, but about accepting its terms. Later, after the initial shock had subsided, I found a small, waterproof pouch tucked into the lining of my coat. It was Elias's. Inside, nestled amongst a few dried leaves and a small, smooth stone, was a letter. His handwriting was shaky, almost illegible, but the words were clear. Asterisk. If you are reading this, I am gone. Do not mourn me. I came here seeking something, and I found it. I found the truth in the ice, the beauty in the silence. The Arctic is not a place to be conquered, but a place to be understood. It demands respect, and it rewards those who listen. Remember what you have learned here. Carry it with you. And when you return to the world, tell them of the beauty, the fragility, and the power of this place. Tell them of the bear. Tell them to listen. Asterisk. I clutched the letter to my chest, tears streaming down my face, thawing the ice that had gripped my heart. He had given me a purpose, a reason to live. I would not let his sacrifice be in vain. I would become his voice, his advocate, a messenger from the frozen north. The Arctic had not broken me. It had changed me. It had stripped away the layers of ambition and ego, leaving behind something raw, something real. And in that rawness, in that vulnerability, I found a strength I never knew I possessed. The journey home would be long, but I was no longer afraid. I carried within me the spirit of Elias, the wisdom of the Arctic, and the unwavering determination to tell their story. The ice had spoken, and I would listen.